Good evening and welcome.
Good evening.
Hello. Oh, your mics have been unmuted.
Good evening.
Hi, thank you. I trust you all well.
Yes, thank you. We are all well, and you?
Okay, all right, no problem. Thanks for that. Chantel gives me the thumbs up. Good stuff. Anybody have any questions or comments or anything before we start? It's still a minute or two before we can get going. Any comments, questions, anything troubling anybody? Not financially. Hendrik, go ahead.
Yes, sorry. I missed the previous class. Is there a recording of the previous class?
Yeah, it should be on the portal.
100%.
But if you send me an email, I'll send you the slides.
Oh, thank you so much.
No problem. Simbulele and Salome and Beauty and Darren. All I trust you all well. Let me share my screen. If you have any questions, please simply raise your hand and yeah, unmute and talk to me. Hendrik, you still got your hand up? Is it an old hand? Okay, no problem. Okay, let me share my screen. Become entrepreneurship. There you go. All right, I trust you can see my screen. Right, and the audio is okay. Right, you're welcome, everybody. If you have a question or comment or anything, simply just unmute and talk to me because I won't be able to see your hand up. Or sometimes it does come up though, but at the moment I can't see any hands up. Okay, so it's BCom, Bachelor of Commerce, Entrepreneurship 301. My name is Osman Sidat, and that's my email address. All right, today is the 21st of April, so hopefully you're in the right webinar. And good evening and welcome once again to all of you. We met last week Thursday, or Wednesday, no, Tuesday, sorry, 14th. And I don't know how the second webinar came so quickly after that, but no matter. A word from our sponsor, which you're tired of looking at, but Region Connect for Jobs, in case you might be interested or refer it to somebody. And you are reminded once again, rule number 1, which is about being familiar with the contents of the module. And that means 20 chapters. And you are reminded once again that these are all linked. You need to integrate your knowledge. Also integrate your knowledge across the modules. In Business Management 3, for example, you'll be doing strategic management or elements of strategic management, and that has a big overlap with what entrepreneurs try to do, specifically if you want managing growth, buying a franchise, business failure, growth strategies and options, etc., etc. So all these are linked. E-commerce opportunities. And then chapter 18, you see international business opportunities. And lo and behold, that's another module you're doing. And unfortunately for your troubles, you got me back again. So you're going to listen to me. I have to listen to me again if you tomorrow's webinar. I think it's scheduled for tomorrow, the 22nd of April. Yeah, so again, please integrate your knowledge, okay? So we sort of covered, and I hate to say this because it might seem contradictory, we sort of covered the first 5 chapters, and I need you all to see how this thing pans out and how the links are. So we asked ourselves, what exactly is this thing called entrepreneurship? Who exactly is an entrepreneur, and are there characteristics of entrepreneurs that perhaps lay out or make successful entrepreneurs different? We talked about this notion of an opportunity-driven act, okay? based on opportunity, but also enabling creativity and innovation in order to be able to make something that is new or that is different, that gives us that solves a problem, etc. And that then talks about this window of opportunity. Okay, so it's about taking those ideas and turning them into viable business opportunities. Is about evaluating the opportunity and then moving on more formally to a business plan. And today we'll talk briefly about the resources, the legal obligations, getting started, financing, network and support, and maybe we'll move on to family business. I only got about 800 slides, so it should be enough. Okay, so this is straightforward. What kind of resources do entrepreneurs have? Personal resources, financial resources, human resources, physical resources, and of course, importantly, information resources. But remember, these resources don't necessarily have to be under the control of the entrepreneur. It's about how we leverage this. So the personal resources might be your skills, your knowledge, your experience, etc. Maybe you save money to start your own business venture, etc. And then, of course, financial resources, self-explanatory. You can't do this all your own, so you need human resources. Physical resources, again, might not necessarily be under your control. And then information resources, which can be available, which can be bought, etc., etc. But those information resources are not only from the internet or from ChatGPT or something like that. It could be from the people you employ, or from the people you network with or connect with, etc. Okay, so these are some of the resources that entrepreneurs have access to: business websites, business blogs, in terms of maybe starting a franchise or writing a business plan or running a business from home. Crowdfunding platforms is a realistic way to fund a so-called startup. Incubators and accelerators that help startups get established, and then a number of apps or applications to help entrepreneurs start their business, get feedback, and grow. So these would all come under this sort of umbrella of resources for entrepreneurs. Here's most resources where you're able to create a website, okay? Free and paid programs, mobile app tools that you can use from your smartphone, project management resources that allow you to plan and manage your business. And you get a lot of software as well, scheduling, communication, collaboration, etc. Customer communication tools, messenger bots, messaging services, pop-up chats, etc. Customer communication tools that can also be on your website that allows you to engage. And then also there's the email and social media. And then the more professional communication technologies such as video conferencing, etc., that might enable you to not only communicate with investors and team members, but also in terms of other entrepreneurs. And the list goes on, unfortunately. Okay, writing resources. Again, things that you might sound very simplistic, but really correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation. So you don't want an ad on your website or an ad in social media that's got spelling errors or something like that, or incorrect grammar. Analytical tools that provide entrepreneurs with analytics tools, rather, with data, measure key performance indicators, track email or website traffic, etc. It's all about making informed decisions. Research about competitors, that is also a resource that entrepreneurs can use. Again, can be paid, it can be scanning, maybe websites, etc. And then productivity tools, things that will help you meet deadlines, take notes, organize ideas, plan and strategize, etc., manage time, all those kinds of things. All these would fall under this thing called resources. So that's all I have to say about resources. Then the legal aspects. The first part would be about what is the form of business ownership. Maybe you don't remember. You might have done something like this in Business Management 1, if you can remember that far back. In commercial law, you might have talked about sole proprietors and partnerships and companies and non-profit organizations, business trusts. Okay, you got a question? Or are you talking to somebody else? No problem. All right, then what are the criteria for selecting the form of business ownership? Again, it would be talk about the level of formality, the number of owners, the tax considerations, issues of continuity, cost. The cost of registering a company might be prohibitive, for example, initially, and also the issue of personal liability. So in a sole proprietorship, you know, there's no difference between the owner and the business. In a company or a private limited company, what might happen is that there's a separation of ownership and so-called control, and issues of personal liability then can be different. Then there are a number of laws that protect your IP or intellectual property. The Copyright Act, the Patents Act, the Trademarks Act, the Designs Act. Now all these that provide for registration of trademarks and designs and registering a patent for something that you invented, all again allow you to protect the intellectual property that you've developed. Because as you know, ideas can be copied, products can be copied, strategies can be copied, all kinds of things happen. Now, you can't say this is my strategy and nobody else can use it, but there might be certain things that are trademarks or that will be unique. And if you've registered that, then again, there is an advantage to that, although there's also a cost. Then we have this notion of registering with the South African Revenue Service, okay? The taxman, so to speak. If you're registered for VAT, again, there are conditions under which you need to register for VAT. If you have employees, you need to deduct. The Income Tax Act empowers employers to deduct at source. In other words, you deduct from the salary or wages due to somebody, and you deduct pay as you earn, PAYE. Customs duties if you're ordering inventory or stock or anything else. Excise duties and levies, same thing. You might have to pay a skills development levy, SDL, a skills development levy, and of course for your employees, and you all know this, unemployment insurance, although recently the thresholds have gone up. Then registration with the local authority, trade licensing. In other words, is there a license that has to be sought or applied for? And if that is granted, what is the cost of that? If you own a property, the business owns a property, there'll be rates and taxes, there'll be other levies and utilities. Those are ongoing expenses, but there might be other charges to set up. And then this one here, COIDA, the compensation for occupational injuries and diseases, registration with the Department of Labor. Again, depending on how many employees you have, the kind of work that they do, etc. But that is also a given if it's a formal business. Then you might have come across some of these. The employment and labor legislation in South Africa, it's regulated by things such as the BCEA, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the National Minimum Wage Act. Now, again, if you take BCEA, among other things, it provides for a working week of 45 hours and an annual leave entitlement. So if your staff are actually working more than 45 hours a week, you have to pay overtime, for example. All employees are entitled after completed or in a year for 15 working days annual leave, okay? With the weekends, of course, it becomes 21, but that kind of thing. Then the National Minimum Wage Act, as the name suggests, establishes minimum wages and conditions of service. The LRA, it's about employment relationships and collective bargaining. Occupational Health and Safety Act, you might have known about that. Again, it places an onus and responsibility on the owners, managers of an organization. The Employment Equity Act, I don't need to tell you about that. And of course, Skills Development Act and the Skills Development Levies Act. And this is enables you to draw on that to train your workers, etc. But it's all about improving working skills. Then there's a couple others, the National Credit Act. If in fact you are providing credit to your customers, so credit and credit marketing practices must be fair and must promote responsible credit granting and use. The CPA, Consumer Protection Act, again aims to promote fair and responsible business practices, protect consumers, and then POPIA, the Protection of Personal Information Act, which is a data protection law. So you will no doubt have come across some of these. Again, put it in the context of starting a business, buying a business, whatever it is, and this now becomes important in terms of being compliant with the law. So that takes us to the next one, which is about getting started. Okay? And again, you might recognize the first bullet, the so-called POLC, planning, organizing, leading, and control. So you've thought of the idea, you've done your research, you've converted the idea into a business opportunity. Now you got to run or manage the business. And that's why the first things, planning, organizing, leading, controlling. These are not separate issues, it's a cycle of related activities. You might have to make decisions about where to locate the business. What's the location of the business? Then about managing the risk, remembering that everything you do has risk attached to it, and that risk needs to be identified. For those of you doing risk management, you know what I'm talking about. Identified, assessed or evaluated, and then treated or mitigated for, or against rather. Okay? Remembering that you can't eliminate risk altogether. Some risk you might choose to literally live with or accept. Other risks can be transferred. For example, for your asset loss, you can transfer that risk and buy insurance, that kind of thing. Then the management of the quality of the products or the services, whatever you're doing, again, it's a given. Ethics, being ethical about knowing the difference between right and wrong, being socially responsible in terms of how you run your business, not providing harmful products and services to the customers or to the environment, etc., doing the right things. Okay? And then finally, no business can survive without proper record keeping and a form of internal control. Again, the leading and controlling part. All right, how do you know that we're making money? How do you know that business is good, etc.? And that's the data that's provided. So some of the location factors that you'll consider, the sources of raw materials, the transport infrastructure, not only for your logistics, but also for your staff to get to your place of the work, availability of power and water, site and buildings, capital, existing business environment, the social environment, central government policy, all kinds of things that would be considered. And this is not an exhaustive list. You can think about the buying power of your target market. That's a location factor, for example. So coming back to the issue of risks and risk management, we talk about the wheel of misfortune. Okay? Murphy's Law. If you talk about scenarios, but really, what can go wrong, so to speak? Okay? and therefore you have customer risks. People will take on credit and not pay, bad debts. You might have product liability, somebody suing you. There might be injuries on your premises. Those are customer risks. Somebody slips because somebody was cleaning the floor and they want to sue you because they dislocated their ankle or something like that kind of thing. Then the personnel risks, employee dishonesty, people stealing, okay? Competition from former employees. So you might have started a business and then somebody worked with you and then took your ideas and then went and started their own business. Bankruptcy, again, a very real risk. And then the property risks for the premises that you own. They could be fire, they could be natural disasters, earthquakes, etc. Your shop could be broken into. You might fall to a scam, business swindles, shoplifting, etc., etc. Sometimes we call it shrinkage, but that's all the things that have to be considered. Then the question is, how do we finance our entrepreneurial venture? Well, what are the requirements, the financial requirements, determining those financial requirements, and then considering the different sources of finance. So how do we know what it is that we'll require? And that's why we have the so-called budget, a forecast, from a sales forecast, a capital expenditure budget, and a cash budget. Then the sales budget, which will be linked to a production, operating, and purchasing budget, a selling and administration cost budget, which gives us income less expenses equals profit, a so-called profit plan. And remember, this is projected, which feeds our cash budget, which goes to the statement of financial position, statement of financial performance, etc. Essentially, the cash inflows less the cash outflows. So you often see startup businesses might have cash flow issues, etc. And that's why we have to determine the financial requirements. All right. If you can't just go to somebody and say, I need 500,000 Rand to start my business. How? What is that 500,000 Rand for? Etc. etc. So what are the sources of finance? Well, there's normal trade credit. In other words, you buy on credit and you use that to sell goods and you use the money to pay some of your expenses, for example. But obviously, you might get 15 days, 10 days, 30 days, 60 days, etc. Then borrowing from the bank credit and overdraft, for example. Hello, you talking to me or you just forgot to mute? Oh dear. All right, let's see what's happening. Somebody's talking. Okay, on your side, if you see somebody's talking and it obviously not muted, can you just put a message in the chat? Oh, there is a message in the chat to see this. Hendrik says thank you. All right, that's the only message in the chat. 85 people. I'm impressed, people. 84 rather. My colleague from QAMS Teams is here also. Hello to you. Not sure who's here, but welcome. Right. So again, thank you, Chantel. Let's go back to sources of finance. All right. So again, you might have heard of some of this. People pay advance payments for orders they place. Yes, you must pay a deposit, for example. Installment sale transactions where people can pay off what they owe after they bought, sort of 6 months to pay type of thing. Leasing finance, where you borrow money or you lease equipment or you sell your equipment and then lease it back, etc. Taking some, not short-term, but medium-term loans. Raising equity capital, okay? This is putting more money into the business yourself, or people might come in as partners or whatever, equity capital. Debentures is also a form of a bond that you sell. Retained earnings, again, use that to finance the business, all right, especially your working capital. You know what retained earnings is, all right? And then mortgage bonds, again, debt in that sense. or maybe you got a property and you mortgage your property. It's debt really. And then of course the one called crowdfunding. So if you need 200,000 Rand, you go to a crowdfunding platform and you say, this is my plan. I need 200,000 people to give me 1 Rand each. Some people might give you more than a Rand. They might give you 150. But whatever the case is, it's a way of raising funds without any debts to pay. Okay, even with equity capital, you're not obliged to pay a dividend. However, with a mortgage bond or bank credit, you still got to make your repayments, even your medium-term loans. Sometimes the interest rate might be a bit prohibitive. So again, business incubators, venture capitalists, angels, business angels. You heard of business angels? Those with the white wings. That's the one that will help you out. That's why it's an angel. Business overdrafts, credit unions. That's an American thing. Don't worry too much about that. Startup loans, government schemes like SEDA, etc., that might fund you initially. And all these are just sources of finance. And here's a few more since you'll want to be impressed by me. Family loans, how about that one? Ask your father or your brother to lend you some money to start your business. Your business might be self-funded. You might get government funding. Family and friends again, crowdfunding, bank loans, overdrafts. Oh, I got bank loans twice. Sorry. Angel investors, personal savings. But I want to ask you about this. Does anybody know what bootstrapping is? Bootstrapping? Anybody?
No.
No? Okay. All right, so you might have heard the term. You can Google it quickly if you want on your phone, or you ask ChatGPT. But it's really about trying to get along, making a plan, bootstrapping, maybe literally survive the initial period is to do things in serious moderation, to be a bit meager about the way minimalist in your approach, and to try and build a business without incurring too much debt. Credit cards, okay. Hopefully you won't max out your credit cards. And then private equity is when there's people who, again, will provide equity for your business, okay? Private investors, you get Old Mutual, and some of the banks have got private equity funds that they use. Okay, so let's move on. So do you remember what about bootstrapping? Okay, so that takes us to forces of finance. And again, just to complete the next chapter, networking and support. Again, I'm not going to read this out. It's really about creating a support system, like mentoring or emotional encouragement, opportunities to find investors, new clients. It's like networking, really. Connecting with others to access resources, but not only resources, advice, collaboration opportunities. Maybe there's somebody in another province that's has a similar business to yours, and he or she might pass on business to you because they can perhaps deal with another province, and vice versa, etc. Or you might do some joint ventures or something together. Why network and support are crucial? Yes, you got access to resources, you got access to knowledge, insights by industry experts sometimes. It can provide emotional support, okay, to navigate the challenges. Now, I want you all to think about that. You got an assignment question about that, the challenges of entrepreneurship, but not in general in that in those first two articles that you got. So networks foster that collaboration, and you could exchange innovative ideas and leverage your strengths. Which takes us to the paths to entrepreneurship. Okay, so might be 5 paths here to entrepreneurship. starting your own business, easy. Buying an existing business, yeah, maybe slightly easier. Entering the family business, okay, so you'll all must understand what a family business is. We'll talk about that just now. Franchising, again, it's just a contractual arrangement. And then being an entrepreneur. So this is being an entrepreneur within, being entrepreneurial within an organization. So you can think about the fact that who shares the risk if you are entrepreneurial in an organization, or who takes the risk? If you start your own business, you're carrying that risk of failure, risk for everything else, okay? So if you're an entrepreneur within an organization, you're acting entrepreneurially, you're looking for ideas, you're being innovative, you're being creative. The difference, one, is that you don't necessarily take the risk as such. However, you don't also take the rewards of your opportunity-driven acts. Okay, because it's the company, so to speak. So let's talk about family business. Ownership, control, and management are held by family members. Started by a family member, passed on, or expected to be passed to successive generations. So most of the businesses today, the multinationals and others, possibly started off as a family business. You might wonder where the name Woolworths come from. Well, the Woolworth family started Woolworths in America. Of course, that Woolworths and today's Woolworths is no real comparison, but the name has been retained, Woolworths, or Woolies, as you might want to call it. Again, just type in family business on your Google, and you will see a lot of information there. Key characteristics: family involvement. Family members are actively engaged either through ownership, management roles, or board positions. So, for example, when Pick n Pay, when the Ackerman family sold some of its stake in Pick n Pay, and even before that, Raymond Ackerman moved from being the so-called MD, but is now on the board. And Pick n Pay used to always think of itself as a family business. Okay, I'm not so sure today, but that's the case. So, and also the Ackerman family has over the years reduced its so-called stake in Pick n Pay. Maybe they're just trying to treat the risk. Family ownership and control, family influence on decision making. So again, the decisions are often made not in the boardroom or at the business, but at home, at the dinner table or supper table. Okay, so there's a big influence on how decisions and which decisions are made. And then, of course, family businesses have this multi-generational dimension. So my brother and I started a business. Our sons then entered, our daughters entered the business, and now there's grandchildren who are now working in the business, and that's 3 generations of people working in the business. So we talk about this family circle or 3-circle model of the family business system. Okay, don't adjust your glasses or anything like that. This thing is blurred. I just wanted to introduce it and show it to you like this. Maybe that's clearer. Okay, so you see this 3-circle model. The 3 circles represent family, ownership, and business. And you then see number 7, where all 3 intersect, is working family owners. Okay, somebody needs to mute, please. Sound like you're on an underground parking or something. Okay, people, can you mute, please? Oh no, sounds like a gunfight. Whoever it is that's unmuted, please mute. Thank you. Okay, so you got family members. Oh, spoke too soon. All right, so number 1 is people who are in the family, not owners, not business. This is getting out of hand here. Okay. Number 2, people who are owners. Hello.
Assalamualaikum.
Have you got? Walaikum salam. Have you got a question?
Man, to stop you.
No problem.
Coming off mute. Lee
Sorry.
Amyasa.
Wait. Start. You're breaking up. Lee. Start again, please. It's breaking up.
Can be having some
Uh-oh.
E and the sunny best is highly disturbing.
Is it only me or is everybody not? Is it breaking up for everybody else? I'm just
Yes,
hearing
it's breaking up for everyone.
All right. So is it Lee? Lee, I think you either should try and log off and log in again, and then you can ask your question, or if you want to type your question into the chat. I didn't really get anything or couldn't understand what it is you were saying. There you go. Saidi says something about bootstrapping. Starting a business or project using only personal savings, operative revenue rather than external investments. And then you got a thing about giving with the webinar experience. Right, there's somebody else. Erastus talks about bootstrapping. Self-sustaining processes. Can admin not mute all, please? Okay, Lee, I think you need to mute, please. Okay, can you try now? Unmute and talk to me. All right, no, I think. Okay, I can't hear correctly either. Thank you, Angelique. Okay, somebody's been told to mute. We all can't hear. That's fine. Okay, I can mute. All right. Okay. All right, we'll go back to my slides. All right, so as I was saying, the 3-circle model. You see now how this complicates a family business. So you got members of the family who are employees, who work in the business, but not owners. Number 7, they are working family owners. They're members of the family, they are part of the ownership, and they're working in the business. Number 3, for example, is non-family employees, people working for the business, but are not part of the family, are not owners. Okay, and you see then how this can become very complicated. 30% of family-owned businesses survive into the 2nd generation, 12% into the 3rd generation. Yes, go ahead.
Hello. Sorry,
Yes,
may
go
I
ahead.
ask a question on
Yes,
the
of
family
course.
business?
Yes, of
So
course.
you mentioned like the Ackerman family that started Pick n Pay, etc. If you just
Yes.
go back to your previous slide, what I want to know is, does the 3-circle model then only apply to family businesses? Because within Pick n Pay, if they then started, then all these numbers, all these applicable ones would possibly also form, as Pick n Pay's model, if I put it that way. I don't know if my question is making sense. So non-family employees you would find in Pick n Pay, non-family working owners, for example.
Yes. Yes, you definitely like that. So
yeah, that's the question. Is it only for family businesses?
No. What I'm showing you here is that when in a normal business, okay, there'll be owners and there'll be employees, okay? And if you then go and list your company or whatever, it's a publicly listed company or a private company, you have owners who might not necessarily be working in the business. All right, they're simply shareholders, and then you have management that controls it, etc., etc. Now, the added complexity comes in a family business where there's family members who can be owners or can be employees or who not part of the, or just who are not part of the business. Okay. And that just adds another level of complexity because it's not always straightforward like any other business can be run. There's a lot of advantages of having a family business, okay? But it also comes with a fair amount of what might call challenges in putting this thing together because you see how many different types of people there could be in this. They could be, number 4, family shareholders. They're part of the family and they're part of the ownership, so they are shareholders. But number 2, for example, are non-family members that simply own. Number 2, non-family members. No, is that right? Non-family owners, it should be. Number 2 should be non-family owners. So again, it just adds a level of complexity. And this is shown, in my view, in terms of how family businesses don't really last. 70% of them fail to get into the second generation. And 88% fail to get into the third generation. And if you then take it, 97% won't make it to the fourth generation. It's simply the fact that there's a lot of complexity. Now, what is that complexity for? Let me put this back into this thing mode. Ah, man. Unmuted. No, unmuted. All right. So what are the problems? Yeah. So if the family unit grows, you've got to keep the business growing to address the needs of the family unit. Again, maybe a bit simplistic. Are you able to raise capital for growth, given that, hey, this is a family business, you might not have proper controls, etc. Governance issues might arise. The ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Often family businesses start off and they've been reasonably successful, but they often don't change with the times, okay? Often also that the family members, successive generations don't want to go into the business, okay? I want to be a doctor. I don't want to be go into the business, my father's business or my grandfather's business or whatever it is. The lack of planning, lack of cohesion between the older and younger generation. So one of the big things in family businesses is succession planning. So I gave you that example, or I spoke about it earlier. My brother and I start a business, okay? Then our children come into the business, for example, my sons, his sons, daughters, etc. And then sometimes the older people don't want to let go. The younger people are eager to take over and show how we can grow this business. There's conflict between who should be the MD and who should not be the MD and who should be the financial manager, etc. We know also that in family businesses, family members who perhaps sometimes are not so competent are in important positions just by virtue of being a member of the family. And if I'm the owner and my son is the manager, how do I fire my son, for example, if he's not competent? Inability to ensure that talent is optimally developed, balancing family and business needs, appointing members without concern or expertise, lack of shared expectations, family conflicts are not addressed. I spoke about the lack of succession planning. And then sometimes for the older members, the reluctance to let go. This is my business. I started it. I sweated it. Now you want me to leave. You want me to retire, type of thing. Yes, so that's a family business. Again, you're not going to get a question, discuss the problems associated with family businesses, okay? You'll get a question that might be related to an article like your assignment or some little scenario or something about a family business, okay? So again, read the question carefully. Franchising, a business model where one party licenses another party the right to operate under a specific brand name and business system. Now, maybe most of you know about food franchises, but literally everything can be franchised. Real estate agencies are franchises. Okay? Those that make locks and keys, etc. Motor vehicle dealers that use not sell the cars, I mean, that use the brand names. A Kia dealer, for example, that's a franchise. So it allows individuals to go into business for themselves, but not by themselves. And you see again the issue of that the franchisor provides the support. Oh, sorry, wrong one. The franchisor owns the brand, owns the business model, owns the system that allows the franchisee to purchase the right to operate that brand and system. And that is covered in a franchise agreement, the relationship between franchisor and franchisee. Franchisee pay an initial franchise fee and ongoing royalty payments. Maybe some of you know somebody who's bought a franchise. Any ideas of what a franchise costs these days? Does anybody have any information about that?
$450,000.
Well, what franchise you're referring to?
A small
KFC.
franchise.
Oh, yeah, well, all will start off small, but you're right. Okay, so again, in certain areas, you can't buy a KFC franchise or you can't purchase a KFC franchise because there's already an area franchisor or a master franchisor, okay? And again, that could be problematic. There's an initial fee. I think for a franchise now, it's some type of food franchise like Debonairs or Steers or something like that. You're talking in excess of 1.5 million. And then ongoing royalty payments to the franchisor. Ongoing royalty payments. And then again, a big thing, standardization. So you know that if you go to any place in South Africa and you see the Wimpy sign, you're going to get a Wimpy coffee there. Now that is what is part of a standardized menu, so that it should be exactly the same wherever you buy it. Okay? And that's why if you're a Wimpy franchisee, you can't make your own chicken curry or whatever and sell it on your menu. You have to go by the menu that Wimpy provides. So you get product and trademark franchises, okay? For example, General Motors and a network of dealers, that's a trademark and product franchise. You could have agricultural machinery, soft drink bottlers, beer distributorships. Then you got the business format franchise. This is the most common one, which gives you a formula for doing business. Fast food restaurants, convenience stores are examples of business format franchises. Now, the question is, if you go the franchising route, are you an entrepreneur? Okay, think about that. We'll talk about that just now. So you can have an individual franchise agreement, which is the most common. You can have an area franchise agreement. So a certain area of Johannesburg or Cape Town or Durban will be only, you can operate more than one outlet in a particular area. And then a master franchise means you can operate locations in a particular area, but you can offer and sell a franchise to other people in this area. So in KZN currently, you cannot buy a KFC franchise because it's all under master. You can't buy it from KFC themselves. You might be able to buy it from a master franchisee. So you will by now have seen the literature about franchising, advantages, disadvantages from the franchise's point of view, from the franchisee's point of view. Okay, it's a complicated business endeavor. And there's a lot of fraud and scams around. And therefore, franchising is very heavily regulated. It might be, you might ask, well, where's the innovation and creativity? in terms of having a Wimpy franchise or a KFC franchise or whatever other franchise. Okay? And that's the thing you got to think about. When is franchising more appropriate? When you have a strong trademark. Okay, but again, like anything else, if you don't add business value to your customers, your business methods are flawed or poorly developed, you're going to fail. So remember, that's a risk that franchises take. When I sell you my franchise, when I sell you a franchise of my successful business, okay, I lose control. And if you do something, it's not going to be your name. Well, your name will probably not be so good, but the brand suffers because now as a franchisor, you've lost control. So franchising is most appropriate when you have a strong trademark. Here's it. Advantages and disadvantages of franchising as a method of business expansion, the strategy. All right. So it's low cost and can be quite rapid. You get ongoing income from franchise fees and royalties. There's cost savings because now you're not buying, let's say for one Wimpy, you're buying for 10 Wimpys. Because remember, in terms of the franchise agreement, the franchisor supplies the franchisee's business with all that they need. In Wimpy, for example, it might be serviettes, it might be straws, it might be anything and everything. The disadvantage is that now, hey, if you are running that sort of branch yourself, you would not have to share the profits, but now you got to share profits. Franchisees can be very hard to deal with sometimes, okay? They break the franchise agreement, they do all kinds of things. Different business skills are required, and of course, there'll always be legal expenses. And you've got to manage the growth of the organization, and that is quite difficult as well. From the franchisee's point of view, it's an important decision. You have to make sure you've checked out the franchise before you purchase it, getting legal advice, talking to former franchisees. And here's some questions. Are you willing to take orders? Okay, that's what I was asking. Is this being an entrepreneur? So the outlets, or the franchisor says, this is how your Wimpy, Steers, or whatever must run. Okay? There's no saying, can I do this? Can I do that? It's in the franchise agreement. This is what you have to do. So are you willing to be part of a franchise, or are you willing to be an independent business person that makes your own decisions? So there's very little, there's quite a lot of restrictions on the decisions you can make when you are a franchisee. How willing are you to put your money at risk? So it took you all these years to save the money, 2 million. Now you'll buy a franchise, and will your return? What will your return on investment go? So the cost of a franchise would be the initial franchise fee, capital requirements, continuing royalty payments, advertising, and other fees, apart from the actual running of the business, the human resources, the consumables, etc. Advantages and disadvantages of buying a franchise. So you see again, franchisor ongoing support, that's useful. It has a potential to grow. Everybody knows the brand, okay? They don't have to think twice. Hey, if you have one place, Sida's Fried Chicken, and next to it, Kentucky KFC, again, you'll see that the KFC is a stronger brand, is more well recognized, not nationally, but internationally. So it can be quite a good franchise to have. It has a potential for growth, but other franchises can mess it up for you because the brand can be harmed. Okay, people. Let me go back before we talk about the assignment, which we did last week as well. So just so you keep track of this, Just so you keep track of this. We're done up to chapters 12. Okay, remembering rule number 1, which is it's your business to read it. So you got an assignment question on buying a franchise as well. So, what's the time? Oh, getting late. All right, let's look at the assignment. Are there any questions anybody wants to ask before we get to the assignment?
Can
No?
I just ask for an opinion?
Yes, of course.
And this is regarding the franchise
Yes,
legalities.
yes.
If you then form a franchise by yourself, would you be able to regulate it in such a way that you don't lose control?
No, because by its very nature, somebody is buying the right to use your brand and your system. That's what a franchise is. What you could do is you could license them. You could have a different arrangement that allows them to use it, but subject to the scrutiny that you want. Okay? Now, it's not as if franchisees that can always do their own thing. The royalties, for example, are often based on your net revenue. I mean, not your net revenue, your gross revenue, your turnover, for example. So often that is regulated. If you have, for example, one of those quick shops attached to your garage, remember, if you're a garage owner and you're selling petrol and diesel and all of that, again, you don't own anything unless you own the land, which is unlikely. You're just there, and they give you 5 years or 10 years. At the end of 10 years, if they don't renew your contract or your agreement, that's it. You're gone. Now you have
sorry to cut you in. The reason why I was asking that, and this is now based on the explanation you just gave me now, is to say people are buying the rights to your property. So if I take, for example, Debonaise, as far as I know, it's not like you own it fully.
No,
Debonaise
you never own it. You never own it.
So they have more power regardless of...
Well, they do have power because they regulate the way you run your business. That's all in the franchise agreement. But sometimes what the franchisor does is keep certain stores for themselves. They have a store which is supposedly looks like any other Debonaise or whatever, but that doesn't belong to any one individual. There's no franchisee there. It belongs to Debonaise or Fine Foods or whatever they call. So you're right. If you can exercise some control, but again, you know that there's risks relating to everything. As a form of growing your business, it's a low cost. Wait, go ahead.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Yes, go ahead.
Now, I would like to ask, is it kind of similar to leasing, where I know of leasing is where you pay for the use of the product than using it for yourself?
Yeah, not quite leasing, because here this is about a business model and a system. What you're taking is a system. If you go get a Spur franchise, for example, they will, once you find the location and they approve the location, then they will come and kit it out, okay? And they will train your staff. They will show the people how to make the char grilled, whatever, steaks or whatever it is. And that's all you can do. You must run the business like any other Spur. So essentially, you might be a glorified manager. Okay? But of course, you're the franchisee, and you might say, I own this franchise. Yes, you own the franchise, but you don't own Spur by any means.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure. So let's talk about the assignment. 4 questions, 3 articles, 70 marks. 16 May is the due date. Okay, so you less than a month, 3 weeks. Does anybody have any specific questions about the assignment? All right, let's look at it. Rule
Hello.
number 1 was about reading the module. Rule number 2 is about answering the question. In order to answer the question, you must analyze or deconstruct the question so that you know what the requirements of the question are and you respond to those requirements, taking into account the marks allocated. So here's the first question on Articles 1 and 2. This might not be the exact question. I've paraphrased it. How does innovation and technology how have innovation and technology transformed the entrepreneurial landscape in Africa? So that's a limiting word, in Africa. So relating to Articles 1 and 2, how has innovation and technology transformed the entrepreneurial landscape? So the answers to this questions are not necessarily found in the articles. The articles give you a context, okay? This is not a Begripsstutz. This is not a reading study or comprehension exercise. You need to answer the question given some of the information in the articles, but with your research as well. You might start off by talking about what is meant by innovation and technology, and then show how in Africa, innovation and technology have transformed the entrepreneurial landscape. So it could relate to the fact, for example, that perhaps previously entrepreneurs were subsistence farmers or people who might be working in particular areas or small businesses, etc. But innovation, technology has transformed some of that to the extent that it has enabled a lot of growth, and particularly techpreneurs or tech entrepreneurs have used technology to develop businesses, and sometimes even for social reasons, which we'll talk about in one of your other questions. So, 15 marks. Try and answer as fully as possible. Try not to just simply copy and paste information. Please look at the question carefully. Analyze is the key word, the verb. Question 2. Now here it talks about the challenges African entrepreneurs encounter. Again, this is not the exact question as you got in the assignment. This is my paraphrasing. Strategies utilized to overcome these challenges. Now, it's possible that you don't need an article to answer this question. Okay, but remember, it's about the challenges that African entrepreneurs encounter. If I talk about the challenges that entrepreneurs encounter, that could be entrepreneurs anywhere in the world. Yes, there must be commonalities like access to finance, etc., government regulations. These are challenges that all entrepreneurs, but that's not what the question is asking. Discuss the challenges African entrepreneurs encounter and how they can overcome these challenges. What kind of strategies can they use to overcome these challenges? So please pay attention to the question. Now my mouse is not working. Okay. Oh man, jeez. What's going on there? That was question 1. That was question 2. Sorry. All right. How's my graphics there? You notice there? Why do you think there's a graphic of somebody jumping over a hurdle? No? Okay.
For the challenges.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a hurdle is a challenge, isn't it? Yes. Okay, so here's some of the challenges that African entrepreneurs encounter. Significant hurdles. Now, this has been produced by my good friend ChatGPT. Okay. Is he your chummy also? All right. So again, I got there first, so you can't copy this. All right. So entrepreneurs in Africa face limited access to capital, inadequate infrastructure, complex regulatory environments, high operational costs, navigating market volatility, etc., etc. And you see that little thing there I found on Google. Again, the challenges of entrepreneurship. That is more general, but some of them do apply. You can argue that this question, for example, is a theory question that's disguised as a so-called case study question. But I'll leave you all to figure that out. Limiting scalability and productivity. I'd like you all to think about this word scalability. I spoke about it last week. It's an important aspect. It's one thing starting a business, and there's nothing wrong with having a so-called small business. But for me, the difference between a small business, which will be destined to remain small, the shop on the corner that sells cold drinks and newspapers and all other little things, general dealer if you want, okay? As opposed to an entrepreneurial venture that is about growth. And that's what scalability is. Your idea, when you're considering your idea or the opportunity, is it scalable? Can you scale this thing so that you achieve economies of scale and you achieve lower costs and therefore decent profits? So say some of these challenges: access to finance, infrastructure, deficiencies, regulatory and bureaucratic hurdles, market vulnerability. So remember, there was all this thing about should the big boys, the Checkers and the ShopRite and the Pick and Pay, be in the so-called townships, because they are this thing. They knock the small businesses out by dominating the actual business sector there. Okay? So again, small businesses face high competition and difficulty, talent and skill gap, finding skilled labor. That should be LABOUR. You can see it was from ChatGPT. I didn't change it. And then between African countries, the intra-African trade barriers, because of regulations and having to bribe the people, etc., can be challenges. Right, question 3, again, based on articles 1 and 2. Now, this is an interesting one. This is about social entrepreneurs. So it again.
Hi, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry to stop you. I just want to ask you on question 2.
Yes.
So I wasn't sure if I was reading it, how to unpack this. So the last part of question 2 says, your discussion should reflect on the role of resilience, leadership, and adaptive strategy in entrepreneurial success, linking these traits to broader socio-economic outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, am I linking the case study, this case study people, Aliko, Strive, Rebecca, those people?
Yes.
And am I then debating or arguing how they showed resilience, leadership, etc.?
No. You're showing that you're using that example to show one of the strategies is to build resilience. Resilience is what? Our ability as an organization to take the knocks. There's going to be knocks. There's a business cycle, there's ups and downs, etc. There's going to be some setbacks, okay? We must not only be resilient enough to take the setbacks, but to grow as a result of that. In other words, to be able to withstand the thing and then find opportunities to grow even more. So that's a strategy used to overcome the challenges. How do you, for example, how do you do something about inadequate infrastructure? Well, maybe you get a bit this thing about perhaps using solar energy for your business or something like that, okay? Or as we've seen, where you in some of the areas where you use your communication tool, for example, is your cell phone, and people place orders, and you then be able to deliver that kind of things or whatever. So it's really how you run out and maybe learn from your difficulties and become more sort of accustomed to the fact that there's going to be problems and we'll deal with them. So I want you to look at resilience as a strategy.
Okay, so it's not a case of this person was growing up in poverty and overcame all these hurdles and created this big company that created jobs. It's not that.
No, it's
it's
not
more
that.
general.
It's
Okay.
more general. Correct. So maybe some of that your answer should include might be a bit not misleading, but might be taking you on another path. It's really about saying, what's the question, the challenges that are encountered and how these can be overcome or what were used. And maybe you can use an example from the article to show how a challenge was overcome using A, B, or C. It comes back to the qualities of an entrepreneur, the persistence, the passion, the belief in the idea, the belief in my business, and that we will succeed. And that if we have setbacks, that's just a temporary setback, that's not failure. Okay? We'll get up and become stronger type of thing. So look at it that way. As entrepreneurs, what challenges do we face and how do we overcome those challenges?
Thank you, sir.
No problem. All right, so we see market vulnerability, inter-African trade barriers. So moving on then to question 3. Okay, so again, we talk about social entrepreneurship. And as I might have said last week, social entrepreneurship is not specifically part of the syllabus, but I'd like you all to explore this thing. Because in trying to exploit an opportunity, there may be, as those words you spoke about just now, to actually improve something. Okay? In other words, entrepreneurs don't only have these things to create employment, but also societal and developmental roles. So we talk about social entrepreneurship, driving change by leveraging business models to address societal problems. I spoke last week about the fact that one of the difficulties people have in rural areas where there's no access to running water is to transport water over small or larger distances. And then there was an invention of the barrel that you pushed along like a wheelbarrow type of thing, okay, which kept the water not spilling out or anything like that and enabled particularly the older people to get the water back to their homes or whatever without too much of loss of water and without too much difficulty. Oh man, what's going on here? Okay. Going back. So that's social entrepreneurship. So it's a mechanism for social transformation and creating shifts rather than just focusing on profits. Now, social entrepreneurs generally, it's not about the profit, it's about the improvement they can make, the transformation they can make. But hey, everybody needs to make a profit. So social transformation means that entrepreneurs are change agents and innovators. And it's about systemic change rather than providing a service. So it's transformative rather, social entrepreneurship. It's about empowerment, focusing on empowering marginalized groups, and it's about sustainability, measured by the positive transformation in the lives of citizens rather than just financial profit. So it's a broader sort of approach to what is a successful business. So I found 3 articles that you can perhaps make a note of. Okay, the first one is the function of social entrepreneurship in tackling social development issues in South Africa. By the way, this is a 15-mark question. And yeah, there's one, that's the first article. And the second article is about social entrepreneurship as mechanisms for transformation and impact in East Africa, in the Journal of Social Entrepreneurship. So this is an area that is seriously being researched. And then Jones, who talked about the intersection of entrepreneurship and social impact. So we're not saying in order to make a social impact, you must forego your profits. You could maybe under certain with certain difficulties, but still you could do both. Okay. But the objective is not only about making a profit. The objective is to transform community lives, etc. And so you have 3 15-mark questions, and then question 4, which is a critical discussion on the franchising statement. So you were given a franchising statement there. I don't have the words in front of me now, and you need to, for 10 marks. Now, you might say, well, this is very short, 10 marks, but try and answer it as fully as possible. Answer the question, rule number 2. Analyze the question. This is not the question. This is just my sort of shorthand, but answer the question, okay? Which will start off with what is franchising? And then you can go on to answer the question. Very briefly, what is a so-called introduction? And then Article 4. So Article 4 talks about this payment system, iKhokha, and the entrepreneurial journey. Now, you're not going to find this answer for 4.2 in the module. You're going to have, you can't just say, do a search for the words entrepreneurial journey. You might find some things on entrepreneurial journeys, but this is about iKhokha's entrepreneurial journey. So what do we mean by entrepreneurial journey? It's this transformative process from creating, launching, and scaling a business, characterized by innovation, calculated risks, and personal growth. So if you look at the little diagram at the bottom here, it's an entrepreneurial roller coaster ride. That's the journey. From ideation and validation to growth, and even sometimes potential exit, requiring high levels of, here's that word, resilience, grit, adaptability to overcome the inevitable challenges. So as you might have heard on one of the adverts, while you were creating your business, while you were growing your business, the business was growing you. Okay, maybe some of you work for that bank or whatever, but it's about managing personal growth. No doubt if you start from scratch a business and grow it to be successful, however you define success, there will be personal growth that comes with it. So here's are the stages in the journey, from ideation to planning, funding, launching, growth and scaling, transformation and maturity. Stages of the journey. Okay? So it's a transform. Oh, I did this already. Sorry. No, I'm going backwards here. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. Components of the journey: resilience, grit, self-discovery, continuous learning, value creations, making a positive impact. Okay, people, that's where we are at. Questions? If you want a copy of the slides, please send me an email, osman@regent.ac.za. Gay, you have your hand up. Or is it Gav? Sorry, Gav. Go ahead. Gav? No.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Sida. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I would just like to, for a few things I'd like to say and ask as well.
Sure.
But first and foremost, I would like to get your permission to post my link in the comment section for the alumni to provide a donation if they very well please so for my running on backup party.
Do some crowdfunding.
Yes, is it possible that I could first add my link and carry
on with my questions? Put it on. We're all adults here, so people will make up their own minds.
Thank you, Saviri.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
All right,
Thank
there's
you.
it.
Thank you for that.
Backabuddy.co.za, Basson Martin Group, Pty Limited. There you go. All right, that's an example of a crowdfunding website. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
So, and then I would just also like to comment on and ask you a question, right?
Yes.
Regarding this franchises. I've noted in certain parts of the world, in certain countries, there are different ways, the way they operate in businesses. Take an area, for example, like the Mitchells Plain area, right? In certain parts of the world, there are countries, there are in areas such as Mitchells Plain, there are no huge businesses from outside or even huge businesses in general, like the Pick and Pop, right?
Yes.
Right, in this, let's just take in the area of Mitchells Plain, they would rather be in a specific area like the area, and then government would allow the specific part of this area for small business to operate and circulate their money. For you, I would like also to I would also like to say that for me for building franchises, I don't think that is for me in terms of ethics, because thinking further, especially from a country who's only 30 years out of democracy, that still needs to grow and still well in poverty. For you,
Gab,
I would like
I
to
think
ask
you
you.
must get to your question, please. Yeah.
For you, I would like to ask, would you promote franchises? And for me, yeah, for you, would you promote franchises?
I would, because it's you see, we talked about the path to entrepreneurship. Okay. What a franchise does, again, if you given that there are disadvantages and there's a cost attached to it, it gives you that training on how to run a business, really. So maybe you might not have all that training, but maybe you got access to being a franchisee. Doesn't mean you have to be a franchisee for the rest of your life, okay? You can sell your franchise or give up your franchise or whatever. Again, that will be spelled out in the franchise agreement. But you're talking about a proven system. So maybe there is some entrepreneurship involved in being a franchisee, because it's about, this is an opportunity for me and I'm exploiting the opportunity. Okay, so I won't cut it out altogether. Yes, like everything else, there are risks, there are advantages, there are disadvantages, but overall, I think it's, again, but sometimes the franchise fees are prohibitive. If you're a franchisor looking to, a potential franchisor looking to grow your business, it's a low cost way of growing the business. Again, advantages and disadvantages. Okay.
So just one last
Sure,
question.
go ahead.
In terms of ethics, if you promote a foreign franchise, for example, like Cyril Ramaphosa promoted, got rights for 145 McDonald's, do you not feel you are robbing, let me say, poor South Africa of their last cents in the small communities in terms of ethics?
No, I don't think so. We have to accept that we live in what is really a capitalist country. Okay, they might have social aspects to it, but at the end of the day, it's about free enterprise. And that's the thing. If you can persuade McDonald's to give you this thing for South Africa, and you can open 145 McDonald's in South Africa. But really, it's not all roses. McDonald's there have been a lot of McDonald's that have actually closed. McDonald's have not been as successful as you might have thought. McDonald's is an international brand. It's known all over the world. It's come under fire in different countries. In France, the farmers want to kill the McDonald's people, etc. Even in South Africa, I mean, I'm talking here in Durban, a couple of McDonald's have actually closed. Okay, so there's all kinds of things. It's quite a competitive industry. So if you say bring out this franchise, Domino's, for example, was brought out to South Africa and closed down, and then now started again. Pizza. So you might say, well, hey, there's American imperialists or there's American warmongers and Trump, and then we shouldn't be supporting American companies. Fair enough. But again, I don't think that's an issue of ethics. I think it's a matter of personal views and your personal principles. So if you say, well, Coke supports the killing of Palestinians in Israel by Israel, then I won't drink Coke. And therefore, now that opens up opportunities for people who make another cola, Kingsley Cola or any other cola that might be a substitute for Coke. Again, you can't really regulate against that. It will be just what people feel and the ability to express those feelings. Okay? And if others say, hey, there's nothing like Coke with pizza, well, you can't stop them. You can appeal to them, but you can't say, no, you mustn't drink Coke, or we're going to ban Coke or something like that. Even down to the shopkeepers. If you feel strongly about a product or a service because it's used to kill children or slave labor somewhere, will you stock that in your shop? Will you sell Nike sneakers, for example, when you know they use child labor or whatever to make it in Bangladesh, for example? Just a bad example. Again, are you prepared to now say, no, on that basis, I'm not going to have Nike garments or Nike products in my store? And you'll say, well, hey, you're just losing out because it's such a good brand and people will buy it. So it comes down to personal choice, Gav, more than anything else. Okay, people, we're way over the time. Thank you very much. Start working on those assignments, please.
So sorry, can I just quickly ask you?
No, of course
before you go.
No problem.
I just wanted to find out if I'm reading correctly in between the lines. You seem to be an advocate or pro AI, and I just wanted to know what would the general feel be on AI usage for phone application.
Again, you can talk about ethical usage or guidelines usage. Okay, so what is technology? Technology is anything that makes our lives easier. Okay, anything that will enable you to do something more efficiently or whatever, you can broadly call it technology. And so AI or AI tools is really just that, software, a technology that can assist us. It then says, how much do we use it? Do we simply take it from AI, give AI the assignment question and say, please answer this for me, or give me some pointers, and then you simply copy and paste it down? Or do you then look at it and say, let me evaluate this? You ask AI for references, it'll give you references. It'll give you an answer with references. And then if you don't verify those references, you'll find, or if you try and verify those, you'll find a lot of them are actually made up. And the AI, the tools themselves will tell you, don't take, AI can be incorrect. And I had an exam paper where a student, for an operations management, a student obviously used AI to answer the question, and took the answer and put it verbatim in his online, copied and pasted it or whatever. And at the bottom of that answer was something, if you need any more information, please feel free to ask. That also was copied and put as his answer. So again, it's about intelligent use. If you're going to copy, do it intelligently. It's just another resource that you're using. That's all it is. So I don't have any problems about you using AI, but if you take it verbatim and you simply just answer it, and you can see the language is different, etc., and then they spell labor, L-A-B-O-R, as you saw in my slide, or you talk about federal regulations. We don't have federal regulations in South Africa. We're not a federal state. So again, that kind of thing is a dead giveaway. Just like things are taken verbatim off the internet because you Googled it. All right? So use with caution and use with a lot of discretion. Have a sense of how you're going to answer it and use AI to perhaps assist you, perhaps give you some feedback. Okay, so we're in overtime now, extra time.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
Just like to, I just
Go ahead.
want to point some. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're breaking up a little, but carry on.
I just wanted to poll a little them. I do live in the area of it's where there's a lot of big businesses, and I believe strongly that most of the money out of Mitchell's Plain is out. And as I close, I would just like to add in the comment section, please support me, guys. My licensing fees are extremely start this business to sell this business commercially as well as the equipment. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Have fun.
Hi, sir. Before you leave, one question.
Yes, sorry. Go ahead, Chipiso.
Yes, for my personal understanding, what's the difference between self-funding and bootstrapping?
Okay, yeah, so it's linked, but bootstrapping is, trying to get yourself going, but with all means. For example, you say, well, I won't go and rent a business somewhere. I'll ask my father if I can use our garage at home to start my business. Okay, so I don't have to pay rent. Now, self-funding is exactly that you fund yourself. All right, you may have savings or whatever, you got a credit card that you obviously have to repay, but that kind of thing. But bootstrapping means trying to avoid any external forms of finance if you want. And really, especially as you're growing the business or as you're starting the business and battling to survive, that you minimize all your external expenditure, so to speak. Okay? So employ your little brother to help you sell the things or whatever, or use your network. Ask your friends to put on their status your business, that kind of thing. It doesn't cost you anything.
Oh, okay, makes sense. So bootstrapping is like using the resources that I have and then using maybe
making
as
a
minimum
plan.
finance as I can.
Yeah, making a plan, trying
sense.
to find. You remember I said the resources don't have to be under your control. And I gave the story last week, I think, about how Richard Branson persuaded the owner of a shoe shop to give him an upstairs office. And people had to go through the shoe shop to go upstairs to Richard Branson's first office. And he said to the owner, give it to me for free, rent it to me, and I will, the people who come to see me or come to my business will have to come through your shop, that will be more customers or more potential customers for you. That's that kind of thing, where you literally making a plan all the time.
Okay, understood. It makes sense. Thank you.
No problem. Nadine, go ahead, or is that an old hand?
Oh, sorry, no, that must be an old hand.
No problem. Okay, people, have fun. Okay, I'll claim my overtime next week. All right. Bye. Stop sharing and leave.